For this year's trip to Moab, I'm doing something a little bit different. Instead of taking my truck, which I normally take, I'll be taking my van, which I built out earlier this year. The weather on the way up was quite windy, 20-mile-an-hour crosswinds through much of West Texas and New Mexico. Pretty cold today, a lot hotter yesterday, so, 40 degrees is a big change from 90, but we'll see. Starting from New Mexico on day 2 was a little nicer, a lot less wind, and headed up through Colorado. Welcome to Pagosa Springs. End of day 2, I was able to make it to Moab. I actually got to stay at my friend's house for this trip instead of a hotel. And yeah, the weather was quite amazing on the day of arrival. First day in Moab, I decided to go out and do some of the old mountain bike trails I had done before. This is the Navajo Loop Trail, and just did a nice easy run of it. Biggest change for this trip is actually bringing my mountain bike and my friend's mountain bike. So instead of renting mountain bikes, we have our own here, and that led to a much better experience on this trail that I've done before. For day 2, I decided to meet up with some other friends and do some climbing out at Wall Street over on Potash Road. And similar to last year, my friend David Oko will be flying in to meet me in Moab for my adventures. To open up the adventure, we decided to do Pipe Dream, which is a black diamond trail that's very, very close to town. We decided to do the not so smart thing of going uphill on the trail next to it in order to get to the start instead of driving there. Yeah. Once we were in the main section of the trail, things started to amp up quite rapidly. For being a majority downhill trail, there were sure a lot of climbs and a lot of hairy moments. It was quite common on this particular trail that a little bit of a tip-off in either direction would send you rolling down the hill. What's interesting about a lot of this footage is you can actually see the house we're staying at from here. The reason for this is the trail for Pipe Dream exits very close to the house that we were staying at. Both David and I were pretty exhausted by the end of this ride, so we decided to end the day early, get some rest, and get ready for the next day, which was set for climbing. After a day of Wall Street climbing, we decided to pack up our bags and vehicles and made our way towards Indian Creek. I decided to start out my Indian Creek trip with a classic. Got on the Twin Cracks, which is the one that I always like to start with or warm up on, and got to do it clean this time. The really nice part about this climb is it has a lot of rest spots. You can lean yourself along the left side of the wall. The only hard part is entering the second crack when you need to finish. I always seem to do the top section of this climb a little bit differently every time, and I think for this particular trip, I decided to climb all the way to the top and shift myself over. The interesting part about these trips is you meet a lot of people. And in this case, we met Cody and Victoria, who are outdoor YouTubers. So this is kind of the fun part, is we got to hang out as we did multiple climbs, kind of back and forth with each other on both sides of the wall of Indian Creek in the Super Crack area. By the end of the day, we were ready to go back to our campsite, and this time we were staying at the Super Bowl campsite in Indian Creek. For me, this is kind of an interesting moment because this will be the first time I actually sleep in the van as like a camping vehicle. First things first though, gotta make some dinner. We didn't try to make dinner too complicated. It was just ramen with a bunch of vegetable add-ins.
Oh, that's the broth.
This is the soup. It's just soup. Chicken noodle soup.
Oh, chicken noodle soup. Okay. I was like, what is this?
This is my all-purpose heating. I'll just like put soup in here.
As the daylight started to disappear quickly, we decided to finish up cooking, grab some beers, and just get to eating.
Unique chili flavors.
Yeah.
And I can identify, say, oh, this tastes Japanese. Oh, this tastes like Thai.
Yeah.
This is a Korean chili. I tried different kinds of protein because you can also get chicken in this kind of package. This package is great for hiking. It's like nothing.
Yeah.
Those ramens, Japanese ramens.
The cup noodle.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
And they
that
come in
stuff
different
is-
flavors like shrimp and chicken and beef or whatever. But they all kind of tasted the same.
Yeah.
After finishing dinner, we decided to grab some whiskey and reminisce about our past climbing trips while we're looking at the stars.
And I looked up and I saw the Milky Way for the first time. I don't know how many years.
And at that point, it was time to turn in for the evening and actually have my first sleep in the vehicle since purchasing it. It's always a bit of a treat waking up in the Indian Creek area campgrounds, especially in this time of year in the shoulder seasons. The weather's quite temperate at this time of year, usually anywhere between 40 to 60 at night, so really good sleep. And we decided to cook some breakfast and get ready for another half day of climbing. After climbing one of the small towers in the super cracked buttress area, we decided to head back into town. One of the bucket list items for a mountain biker is the full enchilada. However, there was snowpack in the Little Sal Mountains, so we had to do the half enchilada instead. After a quite bumpy ride to the entrance of the lower Porcupine Rim, we were able to get on the trail. Many of my mountain biking friends are split on the topic of this particular trail, mostly because of the sheer views down the other side and the high penalty for slip-ups here. However, it's got to be one of the most amazing views of the Castle Valley. The trail was quite windy and flowy at the top, but both David and I had to stop a few times just because of the few sections that got really, really tricky and exposed.
Little squirrely there. All right, Oka, what do you think so far? Scary at times.
There's definitely consequences if you wipe out in certain areas. Consequences.
Yeah, still a bit taxing.
What's that?
Still a bit taxing. About a third through the ride, the trail stopped following the ridgeline and headed towards easier ground that was majority downhill. Now this section of the trail is quite fast, but what made it quite difficult is there were a lot of drops that you really couldn't see midday because of the shadow cast. So you had to really be tender on some of the approaches because you couldn't tell where some of the drops were. And in this case, what looked like a minor drop was actually quite large, and you'll see what happened to my wheel because of it.
You broke a spoke.
After twisting off the spoke as a temporary fix, decide to finish off the ride and just quickly get back into town. What they don't necessarily tell you about this trail is it gets annoyingly technical and uphill near the very end of the trail. So strangely, as you're already tired, you're going to have to deal with some weirdly technical spots or just walk your bike. All in all, this was a pretty incredible trip. Climbing, mountain biking, camping, hanging out with my friends. You can't ask for more on a Moab trip like this in great weather. So until next year, see ya.